Severe weather warnings across Queensland, thunderstorms developing, tropical lows forming in the Coral Sea, multiple systems converging. That's the pattern we're dealing with over the next fortnight. Right now across Queensland, conditions are building towards an active weather period. And if you've been watching the tropics this season, you'll recognise the signs. Warm, humid air masses, sea surface temperatures running above average, multiple areas of low pressure development. This is shaping up to be a significant spell of tropical activity. Let us start with what's happening right now. Across northwestern Queensland, a trough is strengthening. That bringing scattered showers and thunderstorms through the Gulf country. Nothing severe at this stage, but enough to keep things wet and humid. Further east, there's a tropical low positioned in the Coral Sea. And just offshore from southeast Queensland, another low pressure system is sitting. 3 separate systems all contributing to Queensland-esque weather over the coming days. But before we get into the tropical complexities, and they are complex, let's talk about southeast Queensland and northeastern New South Wales, because thunderstorms are returning this weekend. Currently, a few thunderstorms are tracking across central New South Wales. A surface trough is building and these storms are moving northeast throughout today. Through the morning and into the afternoon, expect more showers and thunderstorms through parts of the Dividing Range, northwest of Sydney, then inland through the Hunter region and out towards the Central Highlands. The usual spots, Orange, Dubbo, Parks. If you in those areas, you will see activity persist through the morning, ease off, then resurge again late this arvo and into the evening. Tomorrow, Thursday, similar pattern in the morning. Then we see thunderstorms developing into northeastern New South Wales. Some of these could go severe, but the more interesting development is further west. Across Western Queensland, around Cunnamulla and Charleville, we're looking at a pretty solid line of squall thunderstorms developing. This means heavy rainfall and straight-line damaging wind risk. The system tracks east towards Roma by late afternoon and evening, weakening as it goes. By 10 or 11 at night, it will be a weaker storm system. But if you are chasing storms out that way, you are going to see plenty of lightning. Cracker thunderstorms throughout tomorrow afternoon and evening. Friday brings more thunderstorm activity into northeastern New South Wales, maybe a good storm or two across the Scenic Rim and Darling Downs as well, particularly around Warwick and then west of Warwick and Toowoomba around the Miles area. Conditions are looking solid for thunderstorms. The numbers back this up. Convective available potential energy has started to increase compared to yesterday's forecast. Through pockets of the Granite Belt and Darling Downs, we're seeing values between 1,000 and 2,000 joules per kilogram. Into northeastern New South Wales, that increases to about 2,500. If you've been following weather for a while, you all know those numbers are decent, particularly for this time of year when instability typically drops off a bit. Wind shear values are also looking healthy at the 700 hectopascal level and the 400 hectopascal level. Friday shows wind shear getting up to about 40 knots, 45 knots in a few spots, particularly into northeastern New South Wales. So we could see 1 or 2 good thunderstorms. There's a chance of thunderstorms in the Brisbane and Gold Coast area as well, but the chances there are weaker than further inland. Severe thunderstorm activity isn't expected through Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and thunderstorm activity in general isn't expected through the Sunshine Coast. As always, thunderstorms will weaken off into the evening. Then Saturday morning, we're looking at a chance for thunderstorms through pockets of southeastern Queensland. This forecast gets a bit complex here. There's a weak southeasterly trigger coming through. Normally, stronger southeasterly triggers really make thunderstorms pop, particularly in the early part of the season, October, November, December. But this southeasterly trigger is weak, 15 knots as a sea breeze compared to the 30 or 35 knots we'd typically see during peak thunderstorm season. This weak southeasterly trigger, combined with a trough offshore and a trough inland, will funnel a couple of thunderstorms up towards the Scenic Rim and potentially over the Gold Coast hinterland. But I'm not expecting anything wild on Saturday, even with that southeasterly trigger. Still, it's an interesting day. We may see a good storm or two into the South Burnett forecast district. There's enough instability around Kingaroy and Gympie, and even further north up towards Bundaberg and Gingin if something gets going up there. Dew points are through the roof, particularly along the Sunshine Coast and into the South Burnett. Dew points and temperatures are looking healthy. As such, we could see 1 or 2 strong thunderstorms, potentially severe with heavy rainfall and damaging wind gusts, getting going into South Burnett or the Wivenhoe outlook. Maybe 1 or 2 stronger thunderstorms into the scenic rim, but I doubt they will go severe. Again, Brisbane and the Gold Coast look to miss much of this activity. Bit of a trend lately. But if you do see a thunderstorm or two, particularly on Saturday, but also on Friday, expect decent rainfall accumulations. That'll be welcomed with open arms through southeast Queensland Sunday. The chance of thunderstorms falls away completely. The reason is that instability collapses across southeast Queensland. There will be a few pockets of instability further inland, so a storm or two might develop west or northwest of Toowoomba and Kingaroy. But in terms of risk for Brisbane and the southeast coast, Sunday looking like a minimal day for thunderstorm activity. Still, a few showers are possible, as they usually are this time of year. Just general rounds of instability coming through. Now let's shift our focus to the tropical situation. And this is where things get intricate. Currently, we've got multiple tropical systems in play across the Australian region. Some pose no threat to the mainland, others bear watching closely. Let's break them down systematically. First, tropical low 14U positioned in the Coral Sea. This system is forecast to develop into a tropical cyclone sometime this weekend, then impact New Caledonia before tracking down towards the graveyard and potentially affecting New Zealand through mid next week. In terms of Queensland impacts, the closest this system has a chance of getting to Queensland is well offshore. Queensland impacts are not expected at this point. This is the one system we can largely set aside for mainland concerns. There is also a low pressure system offshore from southeastern Queensland swinging off into tropical low 14U. A few showers on the backside of that system, but they not impacting Queensland in any significant way. It'll just keep things a bit cooler across southeastern Queensland in the next 48 hours. Still worth monitoring in case something develops, but right now not a concern. Another tropical low 15U is located offshore from northwest and Western Australia. This is tracking southwest and we re-expecting it to develop a bit more throughout today. But tropical cyclone chances are dropping fast. It's only got about a 5 to 10% chance of developing into a full-blown cyclone, and it's probably got about 72 hours to do so. Given its current appearance and organisation, that doesn't look very likely. Also, no risk to mainland Australia. So the key takeaway here is lots of systems, but apart from ex-tropical cyclone Koji, none of them are carrying a risk to the Australian mainland. Now, ex-tropical cyclone Koji, this is the one we need to discuss in detail. Koji is likely to get jammed up into the top end of the Northern Territory through Friday and Sunday. It'll continue to funnel showers and thunderstorms into the Gulf of Carpentaria, which means continued rainfall for northwestern Queensland. This will likely be associated with a monsoon trough connecting up towards 14U, which will be over New Caledonia by that point. Showers and thunderstorms are forecast to be widespread through parts of northern Queensland, particularly this weekend, Saturday and Sunday especially, but very heavy rainfall is looking quite likely as the remnants of tropical cyclone Koji develop. This is where the forecast really breaks down in terms of consistency. Multiple scenarios are on the table. Let me walk you through the 2 most likely outcomes. Scenario 1, an area of low pressure develops north of Western Australia around Saturday and Sunday. Whether that the remnants of tropical cyclone Koji or a brand new system, something is likely to kick up and develop into a tropical low or potentially even a tropical cyclone. That brings rainfall or a full-blown cyclone impact to the WA coast around January 20th, scenario 2. A broad area of low pressure develops somewhere over the Gulf of Carpentaria or into the Coral Sea. Either way, this brings very heavy rainfall to extreme far northern Queensland and likely some heavy to moderate rainfall to northern Queensland as well. Particularly between the 20th and 25th of January, these 2 systems are non-negotiable. We're re-looking at them and they are very likely to happen. But there is a lot of variation in how they play out. What is looking most likely right now is that the remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Koji become the Western Australian system. And we get a brand new system developing towards northern Queensland that brings more rainfall. What could also happen is that Koji doubles back and heads down towards Queensland. bringing rainfall through the Gulf of Carpentaria and particularly towards northern Queensland. This becomes more of a northwestern Queensland focused rainfall event. That scenario S looking a bit less likely, with a separate low pressure system subsequently developing north of WA. Either way you cut it, there are multiple areas we are going to be watching for rainfall, thunderstorm activity and potential tropical cyclone development. For rainfall and thunderstorm activity, we were looking at the Northern Territory, northwestern Western Australia and then northern Queensland, including pockets of northwestern Queensland. Far northern Queensland has already seen significant flooding, so this is a concern. More rain on saturated ground means renewed flood risk. In terms of full-blown tropical low or even tropical cyclone risks, there's a good chance something kicks off towards the tropical waters of the Indian Ocean. Whether that becomes a Western Australian threat is still out there for the weather gods to decide, but around Australia Day it might start getting interesting around the Pilbara and Kimberley coastline. There's a smaller chance that a tropical low develops in the Gulf of Carpentaria or into the Coral Sea. Either way, that always means a tropical cyclone chance, particularly for Queensland. But in terms of specifics, whereabouts, if it is going to develop at all, we don't really know at this point. This is one to watch closely. But in terms of immediate risks right now, not something to panic about. We just know that an uptick in rainfall and thunderstorm activity is likely to kick off after this weekend, most likely after Sunday, the 19th out to about the 25th, but probably around the 20th to the 25th of January. Northern Queensland, another wet period is coming your way. Let me put this in perspective with some historical context. Many of you remember the wet seasons that bring prolonged rainfall to northern Queensland. Not necessarily cyclones, but persistent monsoon troughs that sit there for days, dropping hundreds of millimetres. That's the pattern we're looking at here. Not a single devastating event, but a period of active weather that accumulates significant rainfall over time. If you are in northern Queensland, particularly areas that saw flooding recently, this matters. Saturated ground means renewed flood risk. Rivers and creeks that are still running high could see renewed rises. This isn't about fear-mongering. It's about being prepared. So what should you be doing if you are in northern Queensland, particularly far northern areas? Now is the time to check your preparations. Not panic stations, just sensible precautions. Check your property drainage. If you've got low-lying areas that tend to flood, make sure they re-clear. Remove any debris that could block water flow. If you on a rural property with livestock, identify higher ground now. Don't wait until water's rising to work out where your cattle can go. Have your emergency supplies ready. Drinking water, non-perishable food, battery-powered radio, torch, first aid kit. You've heard this before, but it's worth checking. Make sure batteries are fresh and supplies haven't expired. Fuel up your vehicles. If roads get cut, you don't want to be caught short. Stay informed. Monitor the Bureau of Meteorology forecasts. They'll issue flood watches and warnings as this develops. Don't rely on social media for critical information. Go to the source. For those in Western Australia, particularly the Pilbara and Kimberley regions, similar advice applies. Around Australia Day, you might be dealing with a tropical system. Too early for specifics, but keep an eye on the forecasts. Now let Es talk about the broader meteorological setup that is driving all this activity. Sea surface temperatures across the Coral Sea and the Gulf of Carpentaria are running above average. When you combine warm sea surface temperatures with low wind shear and good upper level divergence, you create an environment conducive to tropical development. That is what we've got. The monsoon trough is active across northern Australia. This is normal for mid-January. The monsoon trough is essentially a zone of converging winds near the equator that brings moisture and instability. When it sits over northern Australia for extended periods, we get prolonged wet weather. What's making this period particularly active is the interaction between multiple systems. Tropical cyclone Koji is interacting with the monsoon trough, that S enhancing rainfall. Meanwhile, separate areas of low pressure are trying to organise. Some will develop, some 1T. But the overall pattern is one of enhanced tropical activity. The Access model, which is the Bureau of Meteorology's primary forecast model, shows this active pattern persisting through at least the 25th of January. The European model broadly agrees, though there are differences in specifics about where individual systems develop. The GFS model is also in general agreement. When multiple models agree on the broader pattern but differ on specifics, that tells us the overall setup is solid. Active weather is coming. But the exact details, where specific systems form, how strong they get, those details are still being worked out. This is the nature of tropical forecasting in an active monsoon environment. We can see the ingredients, we know the pattern, but pinpointing exactly where a low will develop 5 or 6 days out is still difficult. For those of you who've lived through multiple wet seasons, you'll recognise this pattern. It's not unusual. What makes it notable is the timing. Mid-January is typically active anyway, but this year we're re-seeing a particularly robust monsoon trough combined with favourable upper-level conditions. Some of you might be wondering about climate patterns. Is this El Niño or La Niña? Actually, we read currently in neutral conditions. Neither El Niño nor La Niña is dominant. The Indian Ocean dipole is also neutral. What we're re-seeing is a monsoon trough behaving as monsoon troughs do during active phases without the added influence of those larger climate drivers. That's actually worth noting. When we get active tropical weather during neutral conditions, it reminds us that local and regional meteorology still matters enormously. You don't need a strong El Niño or La Niña to get significant weather events. The tropics can be active regardless. Right, let's bring this back to practical terms. What does this mean for the next week? Southeast Queensland and northeastern New South Wales expect thunderstorms through Friday and Saturday. Some could be severe, particularly inland. Heavy rainfall is possible. If you've been waiting for rain, this might deliver. But Brisbane and the coast, you are likely to miss most of it. Northern Queensland, you are looking at an active period starting this weekend and extending through at least the 25th of January. Widespread showers and thunderstorms, heavy rainfall in some areas, renewed flood risk in areas already saturated. Western Australia, particularly the northwest, watch for potential tropical development around Australia Day. Too early for specifics, but at S on the radar. The Northern Territory, continued showers and thunderstorms through the top end as ex-tropical cyclone Koji lingers. The rest of the country, relatively quiet by comparison. Southern states, you are looking at fairly typical summer conditions. Hot inland, milder on the coasts. One more thing worth mentioning. With all this tropical activity, it's a good reminder to check your cyclone plan if you live in cyclone-prone areas. Even if none of these systems directly threaten you, cyclone season runs through to April. Being prepared isn't about panicking over every tropical low. It's about having your plan sorted so that when a genuine threat emerges, you are ready. Know your cyclone category ratings. Know what actions to take for each category. Know where you go if you needed to evacuate. Know how to secure your property. If you haven't reviewed your plan recently, now S a good time. And if you renew to living in the tropics, talk to the old hands. The blokes who've been through Tracy, Larry, Yassi, they'll tell you what actually matters versus what's just noise. For those in flood-prone areas, similar principle. Check your local council S flood mapping. Know your property S flood history. Have a plan for where you go if water rises. Most importantly, never drive through floodwater. If it's flooded, forget it. That's the SES slogan for a reason. All right, let's wrap this up. The forecast for the next fortnight is complex, but the key points are straightforward. Thunderstorms returning to southeast Queensland and northeastern New South Wales over the next few days, some severe inland tropical activity ramping up across northern Australia, multiple areas of potential development. Northern Queensland facing another wet period. Western Australia watching for possible tropical development around Australia Day. This isn't about panic. It is about being informed and prepared. Check the Bureau of Meteorology for updates. They your primary source for warnings and detailed forecasts. For those in northern Queensland who've already dealt with flooding, my thoughts are with you. More rain on the way isn't what you wanted to hear, but forewarned is forearmed. Check your preparations now while you've got time. For everyone else, just stay aware. Tropical weather can develop quickly. What a week low today can be a cyclone tomorrow. Keep an eye on the forecasts, especially if you've got travel plans plans or outdoor work scheduled, the Bureau of Meteorology will issue watches and warnings as systems develop. Pay attention to those. They are based on the best available data and modelling. And remember, uncertainty in the forecast doesn't mean inaccuracy. It means the atmosphere is complex and we being honest about what we know and what we don't. Anyone promising you exact details about where a tropical low will be on January 24th is having you on. We can tell you the pattern. We can tell you the risks. But the specifics emerge as we get closer. That is the nature of tropical forecasting. And if you've been watching weather for years, you already know that, right? That S where we stand. Active weather ahead for Northern Australia. Thunderstorms for the southeast. Multiple systems to watch. Stay informed, stay prepared, and don't panic. The tropics are doing what the tropics do in mid-January. We're monitoring it closely and we'll keep you updated as things develop. Check back for updates over the coming days, particularly if you are in northern Queensland or northwestern Western Australia. This forecast will evolve as models get a better handle on where these systems develop. For now, that is the situation. Complicated, yes, but manageable if you're a